All right, now that we have both of our pinch pots and our coil, they're nice and smooth, we're ready to join them together. This is the clay to make the coil. We're going to need that in a minute. The first thing we're going to need to do is get some slip. Slip can be found by the sink. Make sure you are grabbing it from the container that says FVGC slip. Do not grab the slip to the left of this bin, as it is a different kind of clay slip. Some other tools that you're going to need include a paintbrush for the slip, a serrated rib, it needs to be rigid, and a blending tool. So grab one of your pots and the serrated rib. We are now going to do a process called scoring or scratching the surface of your clay. This is the answer to number 7. You must scratch or score both pieces of clay before joining them together. If you do not do this to your clay, the chances of the pieces falling off are much greater. Okay, so take that serrated rib and score or scratch. Those words are simultaneous and they mean the same thing. Both edges of your pot, because we are going to be joining both pieces together. Now it's time to add your slip. You must use slip, which acts as a clay glue, which is the answer to question number 8. It's basically just clay and water mixed together to make a really thinned out version of the clay. You can use your brush here, or you could simply use your finger and rub it onto the areas in which you scratched or scored. Do not be stingy with the amount of slip that you use. You want to really apply it heavily and cover all of those scored or scratched lines on both of your pots. Once you've applied slip to the scored areas of both of your pots, we're going to take both pots and firmly press them together. You're going to notice that there are going to be some gaps that will occur, and that is where your coil is going to come into play. So go ahead and take that extra clay that you set aside to roll your coil and kind of squeeze it into your hand to create more of an elongated shape. Okay? You're going to do this a couple of times, and it's going to be more of like a cylinder type of form. Once you have something like that, you're going to go ahead and start rolling it out on the table. Okay? Making sure that when you do this, your entire hand, including your palms and your fingertip, are hitting the clay. That will prevent the clay from turning into a flat piece instead of a round coil. If you do end up with a flat edge on your coil, that's fairly normal. Do not worry about it. You kind of want to take the flat edge and slightly right there, press it down, tap it lightly with your finger, and keep rolling, and it should become more of a rounded coil. You want to keep rolling until your coil is fairly thin. You don't want it to be too fat and bulky, or you're going to have trouble blending it in to the rest of your pot. So that is a pretty good size right there. Go ahead and grab the pot, and we're going to go ahead and score or scratch again the surface in which we're going to be joining that coil. Okay? So make sure that you do this up and down all along that seam. You're also going to go ahead and score the coil as well, because we're also going to be joining the coil to the pot. So score the whole length of that coil. Once we've scored that coil and your pot, you're going to need your slip again, and we're going to go ahead and apply slip into all those scored areas of the pot. Okay? Again, make sure that you're being generous with the amount of slip that you apply. You do not want to be stingy here. Once we've applied slip to both our coil and the seam of our pot, we are going to go ahead and join them together. Okay? The answer to question number 9 is once you have joined two pieces of clay together, you must finish the process by blending the seams. If you do not do this, the joined pieces will likely not stay joined. So right here where we're going to adhere the coil to the pot, we are then going to go ahead and blend together that seam so it's nice and secure. Okay? If you have an extra long coil, just pinch it off where it comes together. You can use either your finger here, or you can use a wooden tool to help you blend. Okay? If you use the wooden tool, you simply just want to take the clay from both the top end of the coil and the bottom end of the coil and blend it together. Your finger will also work fine for this. You just want to find what works best for you. While you're blending your coil, make sure you do not press too hard. Your form is hollow and you don't want it to cave in, so be gentle with the blending. Once that entire coil is blended in, it's time for the smoothing process again. Again, to remind you from yesterday, a sponge, a spoon, or your rib are all good tools. Okay? If you're going to use your sponge, make sure you moisten both the sponge and your pot, and go ahead and smooth out using your sponge. A smooth rib also works great for this. Make sure it's not the serrated rib. And you can use that tool to kind of fill in your gaps. It is a great tool for smoothing. Also, the back side of your spoon in a circular motion, again, is also a great tool for smoothing out your pot. So you want to go ahead, get rid of any lumps and bumps that might still be left from smoothing in that coil. And when you're finished smoothing, you should have something that is very smooth and soft. You don't see a lot of lumps and bumps and indents in your form.